The other day, I ended up going to a concert, which I had no plans of doing. I was essentially walking around, and there happened to be a free concert going on right near me, and I ended up going and standing almost front row for this concert. The band was a band that I'd heard of, but I only knew like one or two of their songs. Like nobody that I was a super big fan of, but someone that has like relatively relatively known. They've had a few songs, or at least one song that's been pretty popular on TikTok. I want to keep it anonymous just for the sake of like speaking freely because I don't want to offend anyone or criticize this band at all. I just want to talk about the experience in general, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with this specific band. It's more about the general experience. Anyways, so I stumbled into this concert and ended up standing like front row. Obviously, did not know the music, besides like one or two songs. So entirely new experience for me. Barely didn't even know what the singers looked like, right? And hearing their songs live was the first time that I'd ever heard the majority of them, and that was a really cool listening experience that I hadn't really gotten this chance to appreciate before. Every other time that I've gone to a concert, I've first of all planned it in advance and I've learned all of the songs, or at least the majority of the songs, so I can sing along. I don't think I'm alone in the desire to know the songs and sing along when going to a concert. At least in my head, it's been that if I don't know the songs and I can't sing along, then I'm not really getting the optimal experience. I'm kind of just there and don't really feel as exciting if I can't sing along because then I'm just kind of like bobbing my head, as I'm sure we've all been in that situation before. It's just a lot more fun and immersive when you can sing along naturally and dance along. The concert that I was at was very minimal production. It was just the singers, I believe, and their guitars. I think that was it. It was just them and their guitars. Like no background, like visuals. Like there's no screen. Like it's just them, the stage, their voices, their movements. And it really put an emphasis on their music and not on the production of it all, if that makes sense. As I was listening to them, I realized how beautiful their voices actually were and how amazing that they sounded together, which I had no idea. And the thing is that it was because they didn't have all this production going on. Like, they didn't have the drums, they didn't have the visuals, they didn't have the smoke. I don't know what they would have normally, but they didn't have all this extra stuff. And it just them and their guitars actually opened us up to appreciate them for their voices and their musical talent outside of the whole show of it all. I'm not sure I would have noticed this actually, and I would have distinguished the difference in concert experience if they wouldn't have said something, because the artists, like a little bit halfway into the show, they apologized for how minimal their set was and how when they go on actual, like when on their tour, they're gonna have like all the other stuff, and they apologized for that. But that got me thinking to the fact that I actually preferred it that way. And it would be an entirely different experience if they had all that background stuff, because the whole appeal for me in that moment was just their voices and how beautiful they sounded together, not that other stuff in the background. And I don't think if they had a full show that I would have really appreciated their voices. I don't think I would have been able to appreciate their music. And it was only that lack of the show that opened us up to appreciate their musical talent. After the concert, I looked up them on Spotify and started listening to some of their music. But as I was listening to their discography, I was struck by how different it was to being in real life and hearing them live. For one, they had all the production, like they had all the extra instruments, and it was very polished. And while, yeah, that was a cohesive piece of artwork, like that album that they released or whatever, their music that they've released online, I didn't feel a great appreciation for their voices and their musical talent in the way that I did in person, in way that I did when it didn't have the extra production. They sounded like, even though I just heard them in person, it sounded like the majority of other artists that Spotify recommends to me. If I saw them in my Discover Weekly on Spotify, for example, it would not stick out to me, and I wouldn't even further interact with the song because it just kind of sounded like everything else, which is crazy because in person they sounded so beautiful and honestly probably the most beautiful concert I'd ever experienced just in terms of musical ability of the artist. And I believe that that my disillusionment with them on Spotify versus in person is due, yes, to the production and the polishing of their music when they released it to the world, but it's also due to our phones and how that audio just cannot be replicated on Spotify. I never used to understand that when I was younger, that our phones actually do not allow us to have the same listening experience as being, you know, in person or a record player, but I'm really starting to understand it now because it just felt hollow, I guess is the word for it. And again, it's not due to their musical ability because I saw them in person and they sounded great. So this video is essentially my appeal for three separate things. The first of them being to see live music for people that you don't know necessarily and you don't know their discography, because I'd never done that before and that opened me up to finding some really beautiful music and to truly concentrate on their music. And I think that if I knew their songs and if I was singing along, then that also would have tainted my experience because I would have been focused on me singing the words and not actually listening to what they were saying and listening to their voices. So I would encourage people to stumble into a concert or just go to like a local thing or just go to see people without needing to know all their songs beforehand. The second part of this is an appeal to listen to music that isn't just on Spotify or on YouTube or on Apple Music or whatever it is, you know? Maybe listening to music on a record player. Live music obviously is not something that you can just conjure up with your willpower, but listening to music in a place that's not Spotify or not from your phone speaker, because it really does open you up to more appreciation for the music in a way that it doesn't when you're on the phone. Like the phone is great if you like, you know, are singing along to like Taylor Swift in your car and it's more about the experience and less about the actual music. But if it's about the music, which I think it should be sometimes, I don't think the phone is the place to do that and the place to have that appreciation or the tool through which you can have that appreciation. And the third thing that I want to say is that I think that we should normalize not polishing your music and release unpolished stuff. And I say this as someone who has zero credibility in music theory and music anything. I am not a musician, but I am someone who listens to a lot of music, so that's my credentials here. Because when I was listening to their music, this band that I saw, it sounded like every other artist that's making music right now, like every other indie band. And I don't know, I don't think that makes it special because isn't the point of indie to be diverse and to like stray away from the path? And it's kind of feels like everything sounds the same a little bit. It feels like if I picked a random indie artist to listen to right now on Spotify, like if I chose somebody random from my Discover Weekly, I just keep referencing that because that's where I get a lot of indie artist recommendations from smaller artists. If I picked one of them and listened to their music, it would just kind of sound similar to if I picked a different one and listened to their music. Like there wouldn't be anything that would really draw me to one over another. And maybe that's me being ignorant, maybe that's me not finding the right artists, but it just feels like there's not a lot of distinguishing features when everyone is hyper polished. I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing a little bit about my listening experience and my thoughts on the music industry right now and listening experience, and go out and listen to something that you haven't heard before.